Show brought to you by the NuMark Credit Union. Today we're going to be talking to the IT guy, Kevin Quinn, the Chief Information Officer. More from him coming up here in just a couple of moments. I want to remind you that at the end of the show today, we're going to be giving away $25 Visa gift card compliments of NuMark Credit Union. How do you win it? Well, you just listen, and we're going to tell you the answer to the question that could win you $25. You're like, well, what's the question? I don't know yet. Kevin's going to give us so much good information. I'm going to pick one little piece of information and ask you to repeat it. And if you're able to do that at the end of the program, be the first correct caller on the Turk Furniture studio line at 815-254-7300. Going to give you a $25 Visa gift card compliments of our friends at NuMark Credit Union. If you're ready for a free checking account that pays you, I think the answer to that question would be yes. Start earning cash back with NuMark Credit Union by opening a common sense, as in money, sense, C-E-N-T-S, or high-yield checking. With every new free checking account open in October, you're going to get a free mini waffle maker while supplies last. Call 815-729-3211 or visit a NuMark office near you. Kevin Quinn, have you been able to figure out a way to get into the back room and grab one of those mini waffle makers for yourself?
They came in droves, and they look really cool. I really need to get my hands on one because I think my son would really like some waffles, some homemade waffles on a Sunday.
Yes, but that might be difficult to you because security at NuMark is tight. Got it? See how I worked that in there? Yeah.
That was a great segue.
Hey, that's why I get paid the big bucks here, Kev. So anyway, good to have you on. How you doing?
I'm doing well, keeping busy. Got the two kids keeping me busy at the home life, and then security at the credit union is always an interesting thing. Always keeping me busy.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to have you on. So Kevin is the Chief Information Officer. He's the one that's charged with making things safe, keeping your information secure, and also helping people here at NuMark and the 9 branches that they have and all. Make sure everyone's able to talk to each other and making sure all that communication is safe, that it doesn't get out there. But it always seems, though, that, Kevin, every week we're hearing about another data breach. Is it becoming more common, or are we just getting more information from the media, or is it both?
I hate to say it, but it's just more common. If anything, we are kind of hearing less than maybe we initially did when, we got hit with the Equifax breach, the Target breach, the Home Depot breach. It's kind of, unless it's gigantic, it's kind of back page news these days. You hear about it, and you hear about it a lot, but it's not made out to be, this disaster that really it is. So the answer to your question is we're hearing about it more because it's happening more. And the skill level to complete breaches is declining. And it's still, I know I've talked about this before, but the human element is still responsible for 82% of the breaches out there. And we're at I think a 25% increase over the past year. So wow. We're seeing a large increase. There was, a few vendors out there that had some issues that really kind of changed the landscape, really inflated those numbers. The upward trend over the past year was really inflated by probably 2 to 3 major breaches. One of them that's very public, but was pretty catastrophic, was the SolarWinds breach. And it actually, it made a shift in the kind of the main threat vector behind these breaches, which for the long time, social engineering had been the number one issue. Somebody being taken by an email thinking that, they have to click this link. But, with this giant SolarWinds breach, it really pushed kind of a supply chain breach committed by a nation state actor to the forefront, because that one really didn't involve social engineering. There was no email that went out that tricked anybody. It was somebody got in, somebody analyzed, what SolarWinds was doing. They found some deficiencies out there, and they pushed their own software into SolarWinds software suite, and it was able to be pushed out to your clients of SolarWinds, and it got onto systems all across the world running that software.
Wow.
And and this wasn't just somebody getting in for the money. This was somebody getting in for the long haul. So it ran for quite some time and really did some significant damage. But there are little ones and big ones going on continuously.
So business owners that are listening right now, or people maybe that work at small businesses, how can they protect themselves from a hacker getting into their system? Now, I know in the insurance industry, there's policies that you can take out to try to protect yourself, but that doesn't protect you from getting hacked. I mean, that's like the last line of defense, so your business doesn't, or what does get hacked maybe, or if somebody's holding you ransom, there's some money to pay for it right there. But as far as that first line of protection, Kev, what would that be?
Yeah, and it is a good tie-in between the cybersecurity insurance and your actual protection. Is multi-factor authentication is going to be a huge benefit in protecting your systems. And to speak to the cybersecurity insurance part of that, a lot of cybersecurity insurance companies are now mandating that their customers have multi-factor authentication on highly privileged accounts, which would be your administrator accounts that are used to actually control systems. So multi-factor authentication, if you're not familiar with it, and I think most are, but I'll give a quick summary. It's basically, there's three factors of authentication. It's something you have, which would be like a token, like a token with that's got like the numbers that come across it, like an actual piece of hardware. Something which would be a password, and something you are. And something you are would be biometric information. You are your fingerprint, you are your retina. So multi-factor authentication means combining multiple pieces of that, those three authentication factors. So typically something which is your password, is used everywhere. And then, the other pieces could either be something you are, which biometrics, or something you have, which is a hardware token. So adding that extra layer really significantly makes it more difficult for a hacker or anybody that's trying to get into an account, because they may find your password. If you're reusing passwords, not that hard to find them out there. They may find your password, but then the next step when it's asking for a fingerprint, unless they have you or they've cut your finger off, that's going to be a little bit harder to acquire. And then that hardware token piece, really same thing. Unless they have your physical token, that's going to be hard to acquire. There are multiple levels of strength in MFA, whether it's you're just sending a PIN to an email address versus a push notification that requires a PIN being sent back and forth. There are stronger methods of multi-factor authentication, but I recommend you have to have it in some capacity at a bare minimum. And that's if you have your employees having email on their phones, multi-factor authentication should be involved in that. And if you can, and it's a little more expensive of a endeavor, if you can secure your the accounts that you're using to run your network, if you have a way of doing that, that is very advisable to do. And the other part to really securing things is you got to have policies, and the policies are going to help you out. And it's not actual physical defense vector. It's going to dictate the way that things are controlled within your organization. And one of those things is going to be, how employees handle corporate-owned devices, because that tends to be an issue now that we've got a lot of people working from home. You want to make sure there's a clear delineation of, work, what happens on a work device, and then everything else should occur on, a personal device.
Right.
There's been a large increase in BYOD, everybody using their personal laptops for work or using their personal phones for work. But it's, obviously there's been some issues with it as well as far as security is concerned. So you got to develop policies around it and train your staff. That's probably the biggest thing I could recommend. whether, you find some helpful videos on YouTube, or you utilize, companies like KnowBe4, which provides all kinds of systems and tests and things that you can carry out to really get your staff trained on how to handle, should they receive a phishing email. And they, this company will actually send, test phishing attacks to employees to really test them, and then kind of give you a baseline of where your organization is at and where the employees are at, if they're clicking the links, or if they, the training has worked and they're no longer clicking the links, and you're getting a 0% click rate.
We're talking this morning to the IT guy, Kevin Quinn, Chief Information Officer from NuMark Credit Union. So training for themselves and employees on cybersecurity, you gave us some good ideas there. The devices given to them by their employer, is that the responsibility of the employer or the employee? You mentioned don't do personal stuff on the employer's laptop, even if it's, looking up airline tickets or something like that. Stay off that altogether. Yeah. But the employer obviously should be responsible for the security, and then the employee use it for business only. Yeah,
it's a partnership, really. I mean, the employer is going to provide the tools, everything that they can within their disposal to keep that device safe. And there's a lot of tools out there, and something I recommend for, even small businesses or medium-sized businesses that are giving devices to employees are, cloud-based firewall solutions. Traditionally, there was no firewall, which is basically a device that blocks, your corporate network from the internet. Yep. And what kind of traffic is allowed to go out to the internet. Traditionally, if an employee brought a laptop home, those rules would not be in place because they were no longer on the corporate network, so they wouldn't actually be physically going through that device. But there's a lot of solutions out there like cloud-based firewalls, which is just a little piece of software or an agent that'll run on the corporate-owned device, and then all of the traffic is tunneled out through a cloud-based firewall solution. So it doesn't matter where that device is. It's always going to be going through the employer's, SSL detection engines, their firewall engines, intrusion detection engines, and all of that. There's a lot of tools out there to help employers protect their devices. And like I mentioned, the partnership, the employees play a huge part in it. I mean, kind of calling back to the initial statistic of, I think it's 82% of breaches involving the human element. Employees have to help do their part, and it really keep those devices to business uses only, and in every extent that they possibly can. Right. And be very suspicious when you're on those devices. If you get an email about this or that, and just be very watchful of what you're clicking and what you're doing on it. And on the, converse side of that, the employer should be providing training. And, if you're an employee at an organization and you have a corporate-owned device and you don't feel comfortable with it, or are kind of like worried, maybe ask your employer for some training that they can help you out with.
Yeah, a friend of mine does security for a local high school. They give out laptops or tablets to everyone. Some of the things that these kids are downloading on school-owned computers, it's another story for another day, Kev.
I could only imagine.
Another story for another day.
I don't have to see that traffic.
No, absolutely. All right, give us an update. Let's talk about some of the latest scams that are out there for people to be watching out for.
It's an exhaustive list, but really seeing an increase in the person-to-person payment or Zelle scams. Really, I mean, it's not much of an issue maybe directly with Zelle. It's just Zelle being one of the instant person-to-person payment solutions that's really tied in directly to your bank account information. So it's a very easy vector for getting money out of your account. And it's a lot of people being tricked into making payments via Zelle for one reason or another. A request will come in for a Zelle payment, somebody's requesting money and somebody falls for a scam. And, these systems are tied directly to your account. So they're able to get in and send large sums of money. And, if you're tricked into it, there's a fine line in between authorized and unauthorized payments. And I think a lot of people have probably seen Zelle in the news recently because Congress or those in Washington think that the banks aren't doing enough. Because I think it's something like 90% of the time, or 90% of Zelle fraud is not being reimbursed by banks. It's a very high number, and it's due to banks considering these payments authorized because people are, either giving credentials or they're initiating payments and they're saying this is an authorized transaction. You weren't, somebody didn't just come in and do this without you knowing this, you did this. So it's a very tricky one, and you have to be very careful with it. Another big thing is the ATMs with cryptocurrency. So once that money is sent out via whatever cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, the money's gone forever, and that's why a lot of scammers are telling people and tricking people into sending payments out via those Bitcoin payments. I know of a few personally where a fake IRS employee has come after somebody, said that they owe the money in back taxes, and if they don't want to go to jail, they need to make a $20,000 payment and send the person to Jewel. Which hopefully with some training might raise some red flags, but unfortunately in a lot of cases it doesn't, and they're sending out large sums of money and really having major issues trying to get that money back. And the list goes on. Fake job frauds. They're sending, checks for $20,000, asking for $5,000 back. Well, your check for $5,000 clears your account. That $20,000 payment that they made to you comes back as fraud. So now you're out the $5,000, and you'll never find that person or hear from that person ever again. So it's pretty bad out there.
Yep, no doubt. Kev, how can people keep their cards and personal devices safe? I mean, we've been talking a lot about, you're using the company that you work for stuff, but what about our own stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the same things from, over and over. It's make sure you have some kind of endpoint detection software, which is kind of the terminology for the new age of antivirus, because it goes above and beyond just antivirus. It's monitoring for anomalous behavior. It's monitoring for behavior that is very close to what it has seen before in malicious activity. So it has that machine learning capability to be a little more intelligent, but just always make sure you have something like that on your systems. Train your spam filter, which is it seems like a strange recommendation, but there is a learning element to the spam systems, and as long as you're marking your spam as spam, and you can offload a lot of that stuff that can be tricky and a little bit risky, and you may fall for or you may accidentally click. So really just get in there, make sure you're marking messages as spam as frequently as you can, because that's going to train the system to better discover future spam and not even drop it into your inbox. The other thing is just, keep everything updated, all of your software always updated, reboot it. Those updates 90% of the time are fixing software, security issues and everything else. So it's very important to keep everything updated, and just be very, very suspicious with any requests that come via email looking for money.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, Kev, we are out of time. Hope to talk to you again soon. If you are a member of NuMark or thinking about becoming one, this is the guy. That is the human firewall. Literally, his name is Kevin Quinn. He's the CIO. He's the IT guy that we lean on whenever we need to learn about any of this stuff at all. As always, Mr. Quinn, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Kevin Quinn, Chief Information Officer with NuMark Credit Union. All right, 815-254-7300. Is there such a thing as cybersecurity insurance for businesses? You heard us talking about that topic. I asked him about it. What was his response? Yes or no? Is there such a thing as cybersecurity insurance for businesses? Let's find out. Hi, good morning. You're on WJOL. Who's this?
Lucy.
Hi, Lucy. Is there such a thing as insurance for cybersecurity?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. You got it exactly right. Nicely done. You've just won $25 a Visa gift card from NuMark. How about that?
All right.